Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Dalton, for the questions.
What I wanted to start with was like your childhood. So like, how did you grow up like in the church? Like your family life? Did your parents kind of guide you into that, or?
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, I grew up, there were three boys and a girl from my dad's previous marriage, but he was a, a Pentecostal pastor associated with the Assemblies of God early on. Although it was his second marriage when he married my mother. So the Assemblies of God at that time had difficulty with people being remarried and being pastors. That was kind of one of their no. So he ended up starting in Assemblies of God and then kind of becoming an independent pastor. But so I grew up. He helped build his own church there. We often would go traveling around to kind of build the congregation membership to different people's homes in the 30-mile, 50-mile radius, visiting and praying with people and so on. So he'd take me along often because early on I had learned to play piano and do some music. So he'd come and I would be his music person, as it were. We'd go and so that was interesting. At a young age, I was already exposed, and then we would have Sunday morning, obvious worship, and then we'd have Sunday nights. We'd have Wednesday nights Bible study. So I was in the church quite often. Even like I said, when the doors were open, we were pretty much there as kids.
Yeah.
So. Which was it was a great thing in lots of ways because we got to, our family was extended into the church family and got to know people. We'd in the summers we'd have camp meeting services where people would come from different states around and they'd come and bring their tents or their whatever they had, and they'd kind of camp around the area where we were and have a whole week of certain night services. And we'd eat together and just have things for the kids and all that. So it was for me as a child, that was the exciting times, because we got to do some different things, get to meet and see other people. But I grew up in a small town, so I think growing up, I'm not sure that everybody in the town always appreciated my dad's vocal nature, and he was a very caring person, giving. He helped a lot of people, but he wasn't shy about his faith, and sometimes it embarrassed us as kids. We
Yeah.
weren't always as happy about that. Later on, I appreciated it more, but the thing about it was, you couldn't deny that he was all in. He was very committed to his faith, and he was willing to do what it took to help others. And that lesson as a child really stuck with me a lot. That I admired that in him, and he had grown up in the panhandle of Oklahoma as his dad was a mule trader, and tough life, real
Yeah.
tough life, and a farmer, and but he had managed to, kind of find a way to really help others and feel a call to ministry, and so you could see that in him too. So, uh, so he had a tough, resilient side to him, as well as compassionate to help others too. So.
Sounds like a good dad and a good figure.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't without mistakes. He was human, and he had some sides to him that I struggled with as a child too. All three of us did. The boys, the youngest. But anyway, uh, he was a good father figure in many ways, and certainly my faith. I learned so much from him. Growing up in that environment. So.
I bet. So like you said he went around to multiple different states. Did he like extend that Assembly of God like denomination, or like how did that work? Was that new at the time?
Well, he was at that time. By that time, he was independent, pretty much, because they had politely asked him to leave because he wasn't
Oh,
going to
okay.
be able to stay as an Assemblies of God pastor. So, because of that, then he had his own congregation still, and so, but part of it was he developed and as some of the folks in the independent churches do, they have sort of an environment of exchange and connections with different people that meet at different revivals or different other church services and so on, that they keep in touch with. And so he would make the circuit around to them too, and uh, as a way of supporting of him, but also sometimes supporting them. And they'd invite him to come and be the pastor at their revival, or that kind of thing as well. But most of the folks that came from, we lived in Sublette, which is way out in the middle of Southwest Kansas, a tiny 1,500 population town. The closest bigger town was like Garden City, 30 miles away, which was, that was, probably 70,000 or something like that. Dodge City was 50 miles away. And so sort of in that parameter, he would drive regularly to different towns. And even if people couldn't come to church regularly, he would be having home visits, inviting a variety of people from that town to the homes, and kind of like home church almost, which was a lot like the early church anyway. They did that. So,
Mm-hmm.
but, and that meant, a lot of times I was waiting on him. He could close out the party, because he was always talking and praying and doing something. So as kids, we kind of got a little bit anxious, nervous. We knew that once we committed to go with him, we'd be there for the day for the most part, and
Yeah.
sometimes even overnights, but a lot of times it was mostly just day.
Did
So.
you ever get like tired of it after a while because it was like
Yeah,
a lot sometimes?
yeah. We there were times we were kind of, and as we got into high school, involved in sports and stuff, it was harder for us to go with him. So he would go by himself a lot more often. But uh, we still went some with him, but not near as often. So yeah. There were there were times when we had our regular chores, and part of the chores were not just cleaning the house, but we had to clean the church, the boys, on Saturday mornings. So every Saturday morning we were up trying to clean out the pews and clean, do all the stuff you'd normally do for making
Yeah.
sure everything was ready to go for Sunday. So there was probably some mumbling and grumbling going on
Yeah, I
Saturday
bet.
mornings, and he loved to come early in the mornings and wake us up. And of course, that was not good as a teenager. We didn't like to be woken up early, sometimes, but. Anyway, we survived and learned some good lessons in the middle of it too.
So is he the reason? He's the main reason, I assume, why you decided to pursue being a pastor, isn't he?
Certainly one of the main ones. There was another pastor I had as I began uh, as an thinking I was going to be a teacher, and became a special education teacher and
I
taught for
remember you saying that.
taught for 3 years in first of all 1 year in Alaska right out of school, right out of my taught 1 year in Heidelberg, which was a Prince of Wales Island, a village, Indian Native American village.
Wow.
And so that was a great experience for me. I mean, I'd not done so much travel outside of Kansas, and not used to the idea that I didn't have a car there. So the only way we got places was jump on a float plane and fly to Ketchikan across the bay there to get groceries and stuff. So that was really a different experience for me. But and of course it was a small village, and we were kind of isolated, and I was young, and I thought, well, I can do this a year or two, and then I don't know if I can do it too much more than that. So I did make it a year, and it was fun, but I needed to come back to the States. I think I was just too young for a long-term um, commitment there. So I came back to Georgia and spent 3 years teaching in public schools, and it was during that time in my connection to the church in Atlanta and a pastor there who was really a dynamic pastor, uh, that I really decided felt called into ministry, and decided to go into seminary from there, and continued on in ministry from there on. But the special education and teaching, that all was a great experience for me. It taught me a lot of things too, and there was some growing to do and some changing, and that helped me. And also, I think I just didn't want to just run headlong into ministry right outside out of high school. I wanted to kind of feel like going to college and getting an education so that I could do some other things too. Just in, I just thought, well, just in case I'm not hearing this call right. I want to make sure, and sort of kind of put that on hold for a few more years to kind of make sure that I was hearing God's voice and not just responding because I thought that was the thing I needed to do. So
I got you.
yeah, so
So you wanted to have more of like, you wanted to have a little bit of college experience too, right?
yeah, I have more college experience, a little more education, which I felt was important, and also affirmations from others who would see my gifts and say, I do feel like Tim, that ministry would be good for you, uh, because I felt like sometimes in my dad's world of independent world, I'm sure he got some affirmation, but sometimes it tended to be, okay, this is what I want to do. And a little more on my own kind of thing. And I wanted to have a community of people that supported my call and, were ready to affirm that. And that would help me be more sure of that I was making the right decision.
I got you.
Yeah.
So you were waiting to like you're saying, listen to people, like God speaking through
Yeah.
people to let you know, like as a sign, like
Right.
you should pursue that.
Both. I think I had to have the call individually, personally, but also I needing the community around me to affirm that call and say, yeah, Tim, what you're hearing is accurate.
I got you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what was like the culture and that? Like, I mean, you were in Alaska with like Native Americans, and then like into Georgia. Like, was the Alaskan crowd, were they still like religious to like Native American stuff, or were they
Mm-hmm.
Christian, or like what was it all like there?
Well, it was really different for me. Of course, growing up in Southwest Kansas, we had the Cherokee and other Native Americans down in that area that we had been exposed to in some limited ways, uh, in some of the programming and just knowing people. I had a person who in my high school class that was a Native American, and so that was not unusual, but um, being the only, there were a few white teachers in the village with 80% Native Americans. That really was a change. And I learned, as I was there, that really I was taking some of their job, possibilities. They didn't have that many jobs. So by being a teacher there, instead of having somebody from that community or even from that area that were native, to some degree, I was taking their jobs. And I felt it just made me more aware of the my identity and who I was, and so to me that was a great step. It was also a step of faith because I didn't have a car. I didn't know anybody there wasn't related to anybody. So I was meeting a whole new group of people. I did, I became an assistant basketball coach. So I got to
Oh,
get
really?
to connect with them that way. And, and the village was small, so you knew everybody. And so there was a connection there. There was a Presbyterian church there. And one of my very first sermons was at that church. When the pastor went away, he asked me if I'd fill in for him. So I did. Um, and there were some natives that obviously attended the church, and there were some teachers that came to the church, but there wasn't very many. It wasn't like a huge following. It wasn't a big church, but there were still native traditions I learned a lot about, and some spiritual ceremonies and so on that sometimes we got invited to as white teachers. But so that was very interesting. I think I was so young, though, it was almost overwhelming to me. I mean, it was just a huge learning curve and new experience. While I was there, one of the teacher friends and I, we were renting a house together, and he had left something on the stove one day when we were out, and it caught on fire. And so we lost all of our stuff in there. But, so that was a totally new experience. I was still friends with him afterwards, but
Yeah.
it was a tough thing for a while. We had to find a new way of doing and being, but so there were a lot of exciting new things. We went out and fished, and I caught a halibut. I think I told the story once. Almost 100-pound halibut out there with, actually my friend caught it. I was along with him to help, but just all kinds of experiences I'd never had in growing up in Southwest Kansas. So
Yeah, it's a
uh,
big change for
that's a
sure.
big change. So I came back to the States, and then I got a job in Georgia because, again, in special education, because I had some friends down there, and I also just enjoyed. I wanted to experience the South and the warmer weather, and
Tired
like
of the cold for sure.
yeah. So it was kind of extreme, but it was a good experience down there. And in those 3 years, I was teaching middle school special education. I was also attending a church in Atlanta, and just gaining friendships. And we had a great Sunday school class, and that was out of that class. There was a lot of affirmations to say, Tim, you ought to go to the seminary. You need to be in ministry. So that was affirmation. Plus, at that time, also just just getting to know the people in the South, and also being more aware of sort of the differences that divide people, and from racial divides to other divides, religiously and otherwise. So just being more aware of that was kind of a part of my maturing, I think. But out of that, you know, uh, I got a great opportunity to go to seminary at Emory University in Atlanta, and that was a fantastic school. And I learned so much there. And so from that, then decided to come back toward Illinois and be a part of a little closer to home, because by then I was married and had children. And I wanted the kids to be a little closer to their grandparents. So
Wait, so you grew up in Kansas. So how did you have like how'd you had family here?
in Illinois, I did not, but just it's not that far to Kansas
Sure.
from here, considering I was in Alaska or in Georgia,
Yeah.
so it was a lot closer than it was. It wasn't quite there, but yeah. So I happened to know somebody I went to seminary with here in Illinois at O'Fallon. He was at the O'Fallon Church, and so he had told me that there was going to be an opening at O'Fallon, and so I interviewed with the senior pastor, and that's not really how they do it these days. But anyway, back then it was more the norm, and he liked, you know, me and felt like I would be a good fit. And so when it came time, I became a Methodist in college, and so I was Methodist looking for a Methodist church. So that's how I kind of we came back here at the time with the kids and settled in O'Fallon, and so I served O'Fallon First Church for 3 years as an associate. So, and then I went into McKendree for 23 years as a chaplain. That came open, and yeah, so and then this came open, and so God continued to open doors, and that's kind of sometimes how things work. It just you never know where you end up, and
That's really true. You've been all over the place. It sounds like that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And now my kids are all scattered, and I want to complain, but I can't because I did the same thing.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so that's good for them.
I mean, do you feel like I mean, how old were you when you were all over the place like that? Were you like you were fresh out of high school, right?
Yeah. Well, high school, I went to right out of high school. I went to college. In '81. Then when I graduated, then I went to Alaska for a year, and I was at Heidelberg for a year. Then I came to Georgia, and in '80s, and then in '89 I finished '90. I finished seminary in Atlanta, and then I was there for about a year. During that time, I was there for about a year or two, and then came back to Illinois in the '90s, and yeah, and so in late '90s, I came to McKendree in 1998. So, that's kind of how it went. So, uh, I've enjoyed the different places, but I always said to my kids too, you might think that what you're doing now won't really fit with what you really want to do maybe later, but you'd be surprised at how sometimes the things that you end up doing early on maybe weren't exactly in your projected direction and a goal plan, but they can somehow always help you usually in preparing it for being even better when you get to that point where think you want to be. So
Yeah.
So you just never know.
So like, what state? What do you think is your favorite? Do you think you like Illinois the best or Georgia? I think
Yeah.
Georgia would be probably the best, but
Well, I think if I were older when I went to Alaska, and I was a little more outdoorsy, I probably would have really, really enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot because of, just the beauty and nature and stuff, but I didn't probably appreciate it as much because I wasn't as much a fisher person or, outdoors person as I could have, would have been enjoying it. But yeah, probably, well, I did enjoy Atlanta particularly, and it's a nice southern city. It's growing a lot since I left. Olympics came and they expanded the interstates, and it's grown more and more, and so it's changed since I've been there. But it was a nice city to be from. But right now, what makes this home so much and enjoyable is that for a lot of our friends have been here. That in the last 20, 25 years or so that we've developed a community of people, and that's been great. So, and half of where you live is the people you're around too. It's not just the scenery. So,
for sure.
yeah, so that means a lot.
Yeah. Whenever we go down to visit my aunt in Florida, what you're saying about Atlanta, like that interstate, like it has grown like so much. We always like avoid Atlanta because it's
Yeah,
like you can't even move and stuff because it's
right.
just gotten so big.
Yeah,
And I agree with what you were saying about like your home isn't always just the scenery, it's your family too. Because like my family's moving to Arkansas, and it's kind of because like the people that we have around there, we're so close to them, and
hmm,
that's really like what makes it home, like more than here.
yeah, right, right.
And I mean, one day I do kind of want to move, maybe more south to the tropics. I feel like it'd be nicer, but it's gonna be hard too if I decide to do that because I'm gonna miss my family too, like
Yeah,
back at home. So
yeah, it's hard. I think. Yeah, I know. My daughter's in Berlin right now, and she gets homesick at times, and we miss her too. But yeah, you kind of sometimes certain times of life you're away from family and you just kind of make the best of it, but hopefully you don't, that's not a forever thing. But do you are you I was interested in asking you, as you think about your life and your life plan and things that you might want to accomplish and so on, are you hopeful in this environment of the world and everything going on now and situations? Are you positive thinking? Is it are you discouraged or depressed about the
do
way
you mean like where
in general about
the
life?
United States is going and
Yeah,
stuff like that?
I'd just be curious. I know my kids, I have that conversation with them sometimes about.
Yeah, I'm a little worried sometimes. I don't really plan on going to college actually because number one is the price of it's
Yeah,
gone up so much.
yeah.
Number two is like, I mean, I've always wanted to start my own business type of thing, so I don't know if it would help me too much for that. And I want to keep doing this kind of stuff on the side, so I want to be able to have time for that. And I like to travel, so that's why I've been thinking about going and working for the airport and that. But I just don't know if like the path that many people have taken like so many years, I just don't know if like it's gonna work much more like
Hmm.
with where the US is kind of going. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of kids don't see necessarily children. You see the value of a 4-year education and spending all that money and then coming out and still having trouble finding any kind of job that is meaningful to them. I think that's for sure. And so many people work from home these days, and it's just a different kind of setup
Hmm.
where it's not traditionally the way it has been done. So that makes it different.
Yeah, I would hate to work at home. That would
Would
kind of
you?
be
Yeah.
sucky because I don't know. When I'm at home, I feel like I'm not really doing much, and it's kind of like boring. I like to go out and like do things, and like along with that, like going to college to go pursue some like career. I don't want to like really be confined and stuck to doing like the same thing like forever too. So
You want to mix it up and change things up.
yeah,
You get a lot of good advice from your parents then and
yeah, a little
others
bit.
about
They're a little
what to
bit
do.
worried about like me not going to college, which I can understand because that's a lot of the thing that a lot of people, I mean, want their kids and want to hear kids say that they're going to do.
Right.
That's been the
Mm.
thing that's kind of been pushed for a while. But I mean, as long as I have a plan, that's the
Yeah.
main thing that they want me to have. So
Yeah. kind of keep moving forward. What is the biggest thing you learned out of Scouts or some of the others?
Oh, Boy Scouts.
Yeah,
I feel like Boy Scouts has made me like, I mean, grow up the most. I mean, I was kind of a baby for a long time when I was in it because I would just get so homesick. We weren't even that far from home, and I would
yeah,
just get so
yeah,
homesick and tired
yeah.
of it. I didn't used to really like to be outside. Now I kind of like being outside more than being on your phone and crap. But I feel like it really just like we went on this one trip to New Mexico. I don't know if you've heard of Philmont and that. It's like a backpacking
Hmm.
trip. We
Yeah.
went and did that. I mean, my dad was with me, but like that was probably the longest and farthest I've been away, like from my family at that time and stuff. And I don't know, just kind of I was away from my mom for a long time. I don't know.
Hmm.
It made me grow up for sure. I feel
Yeah.
like. And then this past summer, I went to the Keys to go to another trip that was sea base, and it's where you like you there's these like big like oar canoes, so it's like two canoes together, and you like go out with your crew like 7 miles out to like a deserted island, and you have to stay there. And I didn't have any family with me. It was just me, and then like some kids from my troop, and then my scoutmaster. I'm close with Mr. Bob, so that really was a big
Yeah.
made me grow up a lot. I mean, it wasn't actually that hard for me. I feel like that initial Philmont trip really just made me more independent as a
Sure.
person. I think
Yeah.
Scouts is really good at doing that.
Yeah. No, that's right. No, that's great. No, that's awesome. Yeah. And as you think about, is there a certain place in the United States you think you'd enjoy the most, or
Like
outside
to
the United?
live or
Yeah. Yeah. To live, or
I really like my mom's aunt that I was talking about. She lives in Florida, like the Tampa area, and I do really like it down there. I mean, the summer it's pretty brutal and like
yeah.
hot like an oven, but
Right.
I really do like it down there. So I've been kind of thinking about that. And if I do decide to pursue working for the airport, I mean, I could get myself probably transferred to. They have like a small airport closer to where she lives, which is in like the nearest like big town, Sarasota, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a little one. And it's been growing a lot, so I feel like there could be more jobs there for sure.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's great. So, in working in the airport, does that mean like in the tower, or flying a plane, or?
I think you got to do some. You definitely have to do a lot of stuff. I feel like to get in the tower, but I mean, well, yeah, you have to get pilot license to do the plane stuff, but I mean, like baggage. I mean, if I can get TSA, then that's a government job, so it could be
Mm-hmm.
pretty decent, maybe, and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. If
Is
I decide to do that, I'm kind of on the fence about it now. I'm not sure.
is it because you enjoy being around planes, or why the
I like
airport?
traveling in that, and
Uh,
with that, you get free flights, which was the main reason I wanted to do
ah.
it. So
Uh-huh.
you can go on trips and stuff with them too. So I thought that would be pretty interesting,
Sure. Yeah. No, that's
especially like when I'm young to go and like see stuff. I just felt like
right.
that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Are you interested in being like a travel agent too? No. Are you?
Probably not. 'Cause I feel like my scoutmaster actually he does that too. That's his actual job, and it feels like he does get to go on cool trips, which is pretty cool. But I feel like he like more has to sit at a desk. Like now he kind of is working remote from home, but like it's more sitting at a desk on the phone doing stuff on the computer.
Right.
And it's not even like what he doesn't. He's a very outdoors person,
Mm,
and I wouldn't like to be stuck inside either. So
right.
I don't think it's really a route I would want to go exactly.
Sure. No, that makes sense. That's good that you know that about yourself, that you like the outdoors, and
Yeah.
that that's good. Because a lot of times, just knowing that and finding other people that enjoy that, you can find a lot of groups that are doing things, whether, as you get outside of the scouting area, maybe you want to go back to the scouting and help some of the younger ones, but, there are all kinds of travel groups or other things that, people that bike groups that do bike, things, or, I don't know if you run, but
Yeah, I do.
a lot of folks do the 22.6 or
Oh,
whatever
the
it is,
marathon stuff.
marathons, and
Yeah.
all that, and there's quite a following. What I found too, which I didn't know, and I've only run 2 or 3 or 4 of those things, but is that the same kind of people show up at each one of these around the country,
Hmm.
Nashville, Memphis, or whatever, and so they get to know each other, and it's kind of a whole circle of people
I
that you.
have been thinking about because I don't know if you know, but I do track and cross country, so I have been thinking
Ah,
about maybe doing marathons again.
yeah,
But I think it'd be kind of cool.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
I'd like to, if I could, like qualify for Boston, but I know it's gonna be hard. I
Yeah.
think it's like 7 minute pace or 7:30
Ooh.
pace. That's for like
Yeah.
26.2 miles. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that'd be kind of tough, but
Yeah. Well, it's a worthy goal to try for anyway, and
true.
yeah, and even if you don't get there, maybe there's another. I mean, the New York Marathon. There's others that, of course, they all have guidelines. Probably you have to make bar a certain amount, but still, uh, it's a lot of fun and it's good health for you, good shape. Keep you in good shape. And a lot of times, what made it fun for us is there was four of us that decided to do it together. So we worked out together and we kind of helped each other get to where we could do. And it wasn't with I'm sure with the Boston, it wasn't anything like that. We were just dads who were out of shape, wanted to get back in shape. But it was a lot of fun. And we still have those friendships today. So that
That's
was really
cool.
cool.
Which one did you do?
I did Nashville. I did Memphis. We did St. Louis. Uh, So I think maybe one other one or so, but
That's cool.
so yeah, but
My parents have both. My mom's done like the half a few times. My dad's done a few halves, but my dad's done a couple fulls too. He's done like St. Louis, um, Little Rock, and
yeah.
then for like his 40th birthday, my mom like surprised him and signed him up for the Nashville
Oh
one. So
my.
that was a big surprise. He had to
I
run
hope
that.
I hope he was in shape. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great surprise though.
Yeah, for sure.
Did he enjoy it?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Did you run with him?
Oh no,
Yeah.
I've never ran one
I
before.
know. Okay. Yeah.
I think the farthest I've ran for is like 10 miles, and that's like our long run training stuff for cross. Because cross country races, we just do like 3 miles.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, sometimes it's easy to start with the 5K and 10K and then work yourself up to the half, and then if you're still ambitious and want to go for the full, that's awesome too. My kids for a little while entertained this Ironman race, I
Oh
think,
yeah, I know what you
where
mean.
you kind of did a variety
Bike,
of
swim, and
yeah,
run.
something like that. Or there was another one where you're I don't know, mud. It's something where you'd run in through mud obstacles things. My youngest was a cross country runner too, and he liked that kind of stuff. But they never did do it, so they didn't train enough to. And then by the time as you get older, it's a lot harder. So
Yeah, for sure. I'm not
but
looking forward to getting old at all.
well, there's good things and bad. It's like everything else, pros and cons. Your body takes a lot more maintenance, but
Yeah.
anyway, that's all right too. That's why we got the dog, so he can help me get out and do the kind of work we need to keep our bodies in tune. So
Yeah. Chasing them around and
yeah,
that.
right. Yeah, I can't chase him around as fast as I used to, but anyway, but uh, yeah. But yeah, I have, as I mentioned to you, three kids that are 34, 29, and 26, and then Danielle has one who's about 35. But yeah, just thinking how the world has changed for them as they have grown up, and now how they're dealing with jobs and transition and being away from home and developing their own communities of people and having them live through COVID. Whereas, I mean, for me as an adult, it was different experience than them going through school.
Yeah.
One of them, went through college and didn't, stopped going because it just wasn't working for them, and so and still hasn't finished, but maybe will. But I just think about their world and how different it is compared to what I grew up with, and all the choices. Sometimes that's not always great having all these choices because that makes it even more confusing. I
Hmm.
think, but it's just it's different time, and I notice that now. I didn't notice it as much, as a parent in the heat of things when we are getting them through high school and college, but it has really changed. So, but then there are other nice things too, as they get older, and none of them are parents yet, but, I think they see things and do things and realize things maybe that it's helpful for me to hear, on this end now, because things were not always, it wasn't simple or easy always. It's tough being a PK, when you're preacher's kids. And I was, like, like my dad, and there's just expectations from sometimes parents, but also from outsiders or from the community or from your classmates or
There's
sometimes
probably more
others.
pressure and stuff on
So
you because
yeah,
you got to be perfect kids
well,
now.
that's sometimes the traditional thing. Why are you doing this or whatever? But they survived it very well, and I'm grateful for that. And they're making a good difference in the world, and I'm grateful for that too. But I just know it's a different world. So I have a lot more respect and patience and trying to be understanding of kids that grow up these days and get, especially in high school, college age kind of time frame. It's tough. It is, and jobs are. Although they say jobs are out there, there are certain kinds of jobs, and it makes it tougher, I think, for them to kind of know. And like you said, the traditional way of finding a job has changed so much with the online and with so much the way you end up finding jobs these days. I
Yeah.
just think it's different. So
I mean, like my parents are their jobs, like then some people that want to work those jobs, they don't work out at all. Like my dad's work has had so many people like try to come and fill spots because they need people bad and they just don't work out because just people don't show up on time or
yeah,
they just don't care
yeah,
anymore really.
yeah. Well, yeah, I think the expectations are not as and the loyalty is not as important to some people. I think they, and some would argue, well, they don't want to work as hard, but I don't know if that's it. But I do think, there are things that have made things so much easier. It's hard to go back to, the some of those jobs that really require a lot of physical manual labor and a lot of hours of work. I mean, they
Yeah,
say, look, life is more than work. We gotta, and I think there's some truth to that. I think we
sure.
certain generations have overdone this whole idea of all you do is work day and night, and you don't experience family or friends or enjoy your life. So I think that's an important balance issue that I think my generation struggles with all the time. Uh, but I hope you guys will do a better job of it. So I
I
hope,
hope so too, but I worry about some
well,
people
yeah,
sometimes.
down the road. Do you?
Yeah,
You worry about it? Yeah,
not me, but like, well, I hope I figured out, but
yeah,
the generation as a whole sometimes.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, it's ever since COVID and stuff, I feel like it's not to blame everything on COVID, but I feel like it's messed up a lot of things. A lot of people develop habits and some laziness and
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of things like that. So
yeah. No, did you experience COVID in a positive way? Were there good things that came out of that time for you?
I mean, there were good things. Like me and my friends, like the only thing we could do was play like games all day.
Yeah,
So we would,
online games. Yeah.
yeah, we'd play Minecraft all day, and that was our way of spending time with each other. We would FaceTime all day, do the homework in the morning if we had to, because there was a while there where the COVID stuff, the homework that we did during that wasn't even supposed to count towards our grades. So
Oh,
what's
yeah,
the point in doing it? Some
yeah,
of it, so
right.
it was kind of a mess the way it was set up. But
Yeah,
there was a lot of good memories that came out of it. I feel like it was a pretty fun year.
yeah.
So
Well, it's certainly unforgettable. This means you can tell your grandkids about.
yeah, for sure.
Hopefully, we won't have that ever again, but we could. Just like I guess it was 1919 when they had the sort of that
Spanish,
Spanish flu or
yeah,
whatever that just really caused whole worldwide kind of. But I just think that my memory is of driving around and not seeing anybody out, and like big towns and everything, which in St. Louis or somewhere like that, and just there was nothing happening. Everybody was gone. It seemed like abandoned ghost towns, and I thought,
hmm
when is this going to happen again like this? And then you begin to see some of the nature, the birds and other animals start coming out more because the humans weren't around, and
true.
it was really different. I mean, it was just a strange time that you just think, I just wonder if I'll ever see this again the way it is. So that part was really good. But of course, there are a lot of bad things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I was saying about all the job things, it's messed up. Like, I feel like it's kind of a vicious cycle with the jobs. They lost a lot of people from COVID, and now they need people, so they have to be more lenient. But then people realize that, so then they're like less caring. It's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a snowball.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's right. That's right. So, well, what is maybe this is too personal, so you don't have to answer it, but what is the one thing or one or two things that you think your parents have given you in terms of values or legacy to carry on, either about character or about work itself or about school or about a job or anything that you think of?
I think just like being there for me. Like, for example, my dad, he would come to all those Boy Scout things with me. He was just there all the time. My mom, she was there all the time. Like, they would always just give up so much for me, and I really like appreciate it a lot. And I feel like I want to do that a lot for my kids. Like, my mom wasn't able to do as many sports when she was a kid
Mm.
because she wasn't really allowed to. And my mom kind of pushed me and motivated me to go get involved with scouts or do swim team, even though like I didn't really feel like it. She still like pushed me out of my comfort zone because she didn't want me to like not be able to experience that. And I really like appreciate that. And I
Mm-hmm.
want my kids to have something like that too.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
yeah,
That's awesome. Wow. Well, I appreciate you being willing to talk with me this morning. I didn't know exactly where we were headed, and I'm grateful that you led me through just experiences of things that we've had, and I don't get to always time to reflect back, so it's nice to do that once in a while. When you ask me about things I had to think about for a while that I hadn't always thought about those in recent times, so
for sure. I
that
feel
was
like
helpful.
I don't know. I see you like talking in church and stuff, but we don't like. There's not as much time to converse like that. But I do feel like whenever I come to church, like I feel like you're probably one of the most welcoming pastors. Like not many
Mm,
come around, shake everybody's hand, say good morning and stuff like that. Like they just go up and
mm,
read from the book. But I feel like you do your job like personally, like you have a real
mm.
passion for it.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
think that's really great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Can I ask one
Oh
question that
yeah,
I had?
sure, sure.
Um, so like with COVID happening and then like the cicadas and all that stuff, and then the wars and Israel and that. Do you feel like we're maybe in the end times? Because I'm kind of like confused with some of that. Because I don't know if we are or
Mm,
not. I don't know. I've told my dad I don't think we are yet. Maybe at the beginning, but what do you think
yeah.
about that?
Well, yeah. My mom used to always keep telling me, well, time is coming. It's almost here, and she kind of had that feeling at different times. I do think that there will be a time, but
Mm-hmm.
I and it might be. I guess I try not to spend too much time worrying about the exact time because I think and believe that none of us will know exactly. There'll be some signs out there, and there'll be some ways to think about it. But my job is to be sure I'm ready,
Mm-hmm.
and be working each and every day as diligently as I can to share the gospel and live that. But yeah, it is worrisome. This is a troubled time, I think, than we've had for a while. But I also think I wasn't old enough to always realize what the '70s were like,
Yeah.
and I thought about it in the country when things were burning and there were war protests and people were being sent off to war and dying in such great numbers. And that was a pretty bleak time too. And you can kind of go back in history and see
I mean,
di-
even the
di-
Cuban Missile Crisis. I feel like people
yeah,
like what you're saying. Like in those times, they probably thought that was the end of the world. So
yeah. And I can remember us doing these nuclear tests, every day in school to make sure that we were ready to go to we didn't have a bomb shelter, but we had to duck and cover and do all these other kinds of things
yeah, we
sometimes.
watched some of those videos or like the cartoons they would show in
Yeah,
like history class.
yeah, it makes you laugh now, but then it was pretty serious. We just knew that it could be any day, and the that the world would end. So I guess I'm not too discouraged because I do think part of the struggle with social media and all the things we do is that we tend to run to these extreme stories and the negatives, but there's so many good people. There's so many good things happening. I think in preacher terms, I guess you might say, I think God is still working in many wonderful ways in the lives of people, changing their hearts. And there's just a lot of compassion and love and care for people that that we don't hear about a lot of times. We don't always see unless we get out of our regular zone of where we're always at and get out and see where things are happening and people are caring for one another. So anyway, I just think that I if it is going to come, so be it. But I'm not thinking it's going to be here
Yeah,
anytime soon. But I'm acting like it's not. But if the time comes, I believe God will. Like, if I'm open, God will be able to help show me some signs. But in the scripture, I do think that nobody really knows the time or the hour or the day. And there's good reason for that, because if we know human behavior, if we would know exactly when, then how would we act? Well, we'd maybe do everything
straighten
we
up.
want to up to the 1 hour before, and then confess everything and try to say, "Oh God," I
Yeah,
mean, that's kind of the way we do as people.
exactly,
We try to, or we would live differently than we would if we didn't know. And so I think that it's important that we kind of are in that state, because we never know how God works and uses people and situations. So anyway, that's the
for sure.
long answer to your short
No,
question.
I
But
think you're absolutely right. I think we should. I mean, we should be concerned about a little bit, but we should have our faith that, I mean, Christ is going to save us. We don't have much to worry about. And with social media and the news, like you're saying, they blow everything out of proportion so they can get the views and get more money and stuff
yeah,
like that. So
yeah. And these days with AI and everything else, I mean, sometimes it's even hard to trust the things that we think are accurate, because we just haven't figured out how to make sure that things are true and authentic, in a lot of different ways. So I hope we do a better job of that. But anyway,
for sure.
so yeah. Uh,
Well, I thank you for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
yeah, well, thank you for asking. This was great.
No
I
problem.
enjoyed it.
I think
And
it's pretty good talk. Do you have any other questions or anything?
um, I think I'm just excited to see what will happen in your future. And I hope I'll be thinking and praying for you. And
Thank you. You too.
you guys, wherever you go, whether it's Arkansas or Florida or wherever, that I hope, that you always feel welcome back here, and that you'll keep in touch with us too. It's been great to have you as a
Thank
part
you.
of the
It's
congregation
been
and
great to have you as a
personally too.
pastor.
So
I'm sure we'll be back here because I'll be visiting family, and who knows, I might come back here with Ron and Carol for
yeah.
church sometimes
Oh,
for
that'd be
sure.
great.
So,
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, thank you again. Appreciate it.
thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Take care.
Thank you.